button, you will get a good view of the fly, and you'll still see me in the bottom left hand corner here. Please do let me know if the sound quality is okay. The neighbour next door is building Noah's Ark or something or other. I can hear the buzzsaw going, so I hope it's not affecting the sound too badly. But the imagery seems to be okay at my end. If somebody could just let me know everything's okay, that would be grand. So let's get on and tie this fly. It's a nice looking fly. It's not quite the way that Tom would tie it, I wouldn't think, but it's along the same lines. So what I'm going to do is put a fresh hook in the vise, and the hook I'm going to be using this afternoon is a Hanak H200 hook. It's a size 8. It doesn't fit in the competition gauge, if any of you were wondering. It's quite a big hook, and I'm going to be using some of Troutline's Sumo thread, and it's at 50 denier. Now, as always with these nano silks, what I'm going to do is add a little coat of super glue to the shank of the hook here, and the reason for that is wax just doesn't cut it, especially with these black Hanak hooks. They're finished on a black nickel, and the thread just slides all over the place. Even with wax, it doesn't quite work out. So I always put a coat of super glue onto the shank of the hook before casting my thread on. I hope everyone's keeping well. We're starting to get some decent weather here, certainly in the south of England. It's been a tough old summer thus far. There's not been much to scream about. I'll just bring that, so I'm just past the point of the hook, and I'm going to come in with my scissors and take that away. Mazman, thank you. Hopefully this one will look just as nice. As I say, I've not done a lot of tying this week, so it could all go horribly wrong, which will be quite entertaining, I suppose, from your perspective. So, first thing I want to do with this fly is add in the tag, and I think I've used this. It's fluorescent chartreuse. It's from Semplify, and it's floss at 2/0. So I'm just going to take off maybe about 5 inches or so, and what I want to do with this is I'll fold it in half and then in half again. So I've got now 4 cords in here to tie in. Now I want to get it pretty much all the way along the shank, not quite at the eye, just back for the eye, and I'm going to catch that in. Now, just keep it neat, nice and neat, and I'll come all the way to where the body of my fly is going to finish, just here. And what I want to do is I'm going to trim it, and I want about probably a centimetre of tag there. I'll just rough that out with my fingers. I get these wild ideas, you know, I should really sit down and work all this live streaming stuff out, but it comes into my head like I've got a spare hour, and I rush it all, and then subsequently I'm not prepared properly, and it ends up being a bit shite. But hopefully you'll get the general gist of this fly. I was going to just do a normal tying video on it, but there's quite a lot to it, and it'll probably take a bit of time, so I thought I would have a crack on me as well. So next thing I'm going to do is I've got some normal pheasant tail here. It's been dyed green, and I'm going to take probably half a dozen fibres off the stem, and that's going to be about the length of my body. I'll catch that in just there, get a couple of turns just to see where it sits, and I can come back, and again I'm going to come all the way up using the feather to keep the body nice and even, and then I'm going to trim away my waist at the front here. That looks not too bad so far. I hope my chat window's working. I can only see one person's commented, so please do feel free. I will occasionally look at the laptop and see if anyone's got any questions while I'm going with this. The next thing then is a wire ribbon. I'm going to use a silver wire for this one, and it's 0.1 millimeters. So I'll just take a bit of that off the spool. And again, because I've finished at the top, I can catch it in there. And I'll come all the way back down. Perfect. So, next thing then is the dubbing. And I've got some, I've been sent this actually recently. It's from Chuck and Duck. It's a boosted hare and squirrel, Highland olive they call it, very appropriate for me. Errol, thanks very much, that's very kind. So I'll get some of that onto my, let's see if I can show you on the camera actually how so it's kind of got some bits and bobs going in there, and I quite like that, a little bit of contrast in the dubbing, it's not all the same. So I'll just grab a little bit of that in my fingers. Yeah, I thought I would have a little bit more time today than I actually have. I've ended up, my wife's still COVID positive, and my children are still needing parenting, shall we say. But the dog still needs walking and everything still needs doing, so I had a lot less time than I imagined. So I've created my dubbing noodle there, and I'm going to come all the way up the body. And I want to finish, well, just exactly there. That's very lucky. Usually I've either got a scrape dubbing off or I've got to add a little bit of dubbing, but that's worked out just nicely for me. Now, the next thing I want to do is add a little bit of wax, which I seem to have gotten rid of. I need to use this muckle big chunk of wax I've got here. I usually have a small piece on my bench, but I cleared it before I started this. I probably put it in the bin by accident in my rush. So I've added a little bit of wax to my thread there. And hello, Lo, I hope you're getting nice weather in Holland. So what I'm using initially, this is going to be the palmered hackle. I don't know how well you'd be able to see, but when I had the flying device, if I pull that outer wing, you'll see that it is actually palmered underneath. So I'm going to grab one of these feathers here. There's not much left of this hackle, unfortunately, but it's what I've got. I'll just push that out of the way, and I'm going to just clear some of the fibres here to catch in at the front. Now, you probably think I've left quite a lot of room at the front here, but that is intentional. There's going to be quite a lot going on with this fly, so it needs quite a lot of room. So with a palmer, I'm going to come over on top of itself virtually and initially, and then I can grab the feather and palmer it all the way back. So I've not even been fishing for ages. It feels like ages. It's probably not ages. I'm sure my wife would let me know. But it does feel like I've not been for ages. So I'm just grabbing my wire, and I'm going to work my way through the palmer. Because it's such a thin wire, once it gets in about the dubbing and through the palmer, you only just get a hint of that silver with it. And then once I've got to the front of the hook, I'm going to just catch that wire in. My neighbour's on the table saw again. I don't know how badly that sounds over the microphone I'm using, but I can hear it really loudly, and I will have a word with him once I'm throwing chip pokes and smashing his windows later. So I'll just come in and take away the remainder of the palmered feather. Now, as I said, I've left quite a lot of room at the front here. Now with these Irish wet style patterns, and it's a tip I picked up from Mark Robinson when I was at the BFFI, when you're tying in the front hackles, the first thing you've got to do is tie in something a little bit stiffer to support that front hackle. And if you don't do this stage, what happens is when you're fishing the fly, it simply collapses in the water. It collapses and goes wet. So what I'm using here, it's just it's a generic Indian cock cape. Obviously it's been dyed green. I'm looking for a suitable size feather, which I should have done, and I've not. But there we go, that one will do nicely. I'll just push that to the side. So I've got this feather here. You'll not see it very well on that camera, but if I show it up to the fly, and I just want to strip away a bit of the feather at the front here. Now, again, I'm going to come in with this giant lump of wax because I can't find my little one, and I will just wax up my thread there. Just helps grip the stalk. Now, I'm not looking for many turns with this particular fly. As I said, it's simply to support the other hackles that I'm going to tie in. So I've got that in place, and I'm now going to get it over maybe 2 turns. I have met Tom actually. He's a lovely chap and very personable. He actually guides out in Ireland, and I dare say you would have a great day in the boat with him. He's always full of laughs and crack. So I'll just catch that in, and what I'm going to do is take my hackle pliers away, sweep everything back, and I want to just try and come onto the feather with a couple of turns, and then I can grab the waist and pull that away. So that's looking not too bad, and that's the cock hackle that's going to support the rest of the feathers. Sorry, take my glass off there. Hi Brian, hope you keep well. Regards to the wife, looking forward to seeing more tied patterns in between tea and coffee provider. Yeah, it's a bit more than that, mate, I'm afraid. Thanks for sharing this beautiful pattern with us. Hope your wife feels better soon. The weather, fishing has been, oh, I can't see that, but sketchy here in Michigan. Oh, I'm surprised to hear that. I have seen some photographs, William, from a couple of guys I know out there on the Pear Marquette, and they're catching some beautiful brown trout. So I'm surprised it's gone a bit sketchy. But you're very lucky to have such beautiful rivers and lakes in Michigan. It's a stunning place, and I hope to return in the not too distant future. I do love going there. So we've got our supporting hackle in now, and what we want to do is add in some remaining feathers. Now what I've got here is I don't actually have a cape, and again you might not be able to see that there, but if I put it in front of the vise, it's basically mallard feathers now. Mallard feather. Now what I want to do is get rid of the junk at the bottom here. I'll just remove that. I only want this uppermost part here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to catch the tip of the feather with my hackle pliers, and then I'm going to pull some of them longer fibres. It's not worked out quite how I'd like, but I'll sort that in a minute. So if I just release, there we go. I caught in a lot of these nice thin fibres, so I'm just going to try and rescue as many as I can. That's better. And again, I'll show you on the macro lens in a second what I've got here, now that I've finished farting about with the feather on this camera. So what you see is this. Yeah, I've got the little Christmas tree effect going on, and what I'm going to do is just trim up the feather, and then I'm going to catch in a little bit more wax onto the thread. Now for me, these wet flies, they're just guilty pleasures. I don't fish with them. Not the venues I go fishing. I don't think they do particularly well. I just really enjoy tying them. So what I'm going to do next, again, even though I've got a big handle here, I always like to attach my hackle pliers. I think it just gives you a little bit more control. So I'm going to come in at the very tips of the feathers, and I'm looking for, again, just 1 or 2 turns really, just to give it that longer fibres that are going to cloak over the back of the fly. So there's one. I'll come in once more, come around, that should do the job. So I'm going to grab my thread and work my way through the fibres of the feather, like so. I'll release the hackle pliers. I'm going to pull everything back out of the way. Forgive my fingers at the moment. And I'm clamping down on that fairly tight. I've still got another hackle to go in there. Now this remaining feather, I don't throw these away. I'm going to put it back in the bag because this is great for tailing fibres on other flies, even small nymphs for the river fishing and stuff. So never throw away stuff that can be used later on. So we'll put that to the side. And then the last feather I'm going to tie in is this French partridge that's been dyed olive. Again, it's from Troutline. I don't buy whole capes because I don't tie that many of these patterns. So just the selected feathers for me. And again, I've picked a couple out the bag. Let me see which one's the best. I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to this one. I like the tips on this one better, so I'm going to go with this. Again, I'm not looking for very many turns on this, so I'm just going to clear away some of the bottom feathers here to create a handle. So what I've got is I'm left with this. Now, just excuse me a moment, I'm going to have a drink of water. Before I tie that in, I'll just read the comments again. Afternoon, Paul. Well, Paul, how can you ensure that? Well, what I've got to do is actually be a wee bit more organised and give people advance notice. So I was sat on the sofa at sort of 4 o'clock thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to go and give that live streaming carry on a go, and I've just plugged everything in and got on with it. So sorry about that it's a wee bit short notice. But the thing with the live streams is they will appear, if you go to the channel, they appear on the live tab. If you click on live, you'll see all the live streams I've done. I don't do them frequently enough, and I think that's going to change. I think I've got to do it a lot more. to get used to the settings and using the equipment, because I've got all this gear and it's just such a shame that I don't do more of it. And I did do the one recently, the fly and the dram, which I'm hoping to be a more regular sort of thing come the winter time. But at the moment, I'm still hoping to do a bit of fishing this year, and doing the pre-recorded videos is much easier than doing these live streams for obvious reasons. So Paul, in the future, I'm definitely not going to do it by the seat of their pants. I'm going to give people at least a couple of days notice that I'm going to do a live stream, and hopefully then people will tune in and they'll get the benefit of the live. The England final is coming up in September at Rutland. Know you are very experienced and capped. It would be fabulous to get some more patterns and techniques for competition. Paul, yeah, there's certainly every fly you could possibly want for fishing that final will be on my channel somewhere. It just depends on how Rutland's fishing. In recent years, it's changed a lot. I think shrimp has caused quite a change in the way the fishing is. It used to be come September, if you were fishing at Rutland, you'd be doing long drifts over the basin with hoppers and shipman's buzzers and catching plenty of fish, whereas now I think most of the fishing has certainly moved into the edges. They might be out a little bit now, we're in high summer, but I don't know when the final is in September, but once things start cooling down, I dare say the fish will be moving back into their best food source, which is the shrimp and probably the pin fry. So popper fry, competition legal popper fries. Steve Cullen actually does an absolutely stunning popper fry that fits the gauge. It might be worth checking out his channel for that. It's I've fished with it myself, and it works a treat. It's a great thing for Rutland. So anyway, let's get back to this. I maybe lost track of the time actually. I've got to get in and make the tea for the family soon, so I better get on with it. So next, I've got my French Partridge, dyed olive. And again, I'm going to catch it in with my hackle pliers. And I'll just pull all that to the rear. A little bit more wax. And I'll trim up the very tips. And catch that in. Now, I'm not overly worried about this thread because I'm going to change that out. If you remember the original one I had in the vise, I bring in a hot green thread later, green floss it is actually, later on to finish the fly. So I'm not overly worried about what's happening with the nano silk here. So I'll grab my hackle pliers. Just be sure I've caught that in properly. And again, I'm going to come round. I'm looking for between 2 and 3 turns. Sort of slicking them feathers back there. And that'll do it. So I'm going to work my thread through the feather. Sorry, I'm laughing. My neighbour's going 10 to the dozen with his tile cutter or whatever it is he's doing. I'll make sure that doesn't happen on the next live stream. I'll let him know as well that I'm going to be doing it and not to be making all this bloody noise. Okay, I've caught that in. Now, I'm not going to risk trying to snatch this away because it is quite a sturdy stalk on this. So I'm going to just tidy that up a little. Then I'll come in carefully with my scissors on my side and just take that away. Now what I want to do is lay a foundation, if you like, for the head. So I'll just get all the little bits and bobs out the way. But I don't want to build it up too much because I'm going to do quite a bit of that with a floss. So I'll come with my whip finish tool. And just tidy that up a little. And then I can just trim away that. Now, before I come in and do the floss, another tip that I got from Mark Robinson while I was watching him, he tied a mayfly at the BFFI, and it was not so much the pattern, but the techniques he was using was really interesting to me, and I've adopted a lot of them in my own tying, which has helped me create much nicer wet flies. So he's got a toothbrush that he uses. As you can see, I've trimmed it all down, and then what I'm doing is I'm just separating out all them hackles and feathers like so. Next then, I'm going to add a hot head. I'm using fluorescent yellow here. I think that's what I used on the original one there. And I'll come in right at the eye of the hook. And then what I want to do, as closely as I can, I'm going to trim away the rat's tail and hope it doesn't fall off the hook. And I'd look kind of stupid, wouldn't I? But hey, nothing new there. So what I want to do now is build that neat floss head. Doesn't take much effort. Once I've got it to this stage, I'm just spinning it clockwise. Now what this will do is it'll tighten it all up and make the floss nice and thin. And then I can grab my whip finish tool like so. And there we go. So with this, what I like to do, and I've got a bit of time, if I was just doing a normal tying video, what I would do is I would just slap on some UV resin, but what I like to do with these is actually cover the head initially in super glue. And what this does is it fills in any of the gaps in the thread. Just keeps it nice and tidy. Got to be careful not to get super glue onto the feather itself, because what happens is feathers are like straws and it will just suck that super glue up, and suddenly the front of your fly will not be particularly mobile. So just while that's drying, I'll have another wee look. Hi Chris, how are you? Thanks Brian. Yep, that's certainly the plan. I hope to do a little bit more for you in the future. I quite enjoy it. It's not because I don't enjoy it at all, but setting up the equipment is the sort of bugbear. I'm not, as you can see, I'm a bit of a creaking old Philistine, and setting up all this tech, it does take it takes me a considerable more effort setting up the tech than it does tying the fly. But once the super glue's dry, let's finish this off. Once the super glue's dry, I'll get back to the Solaris resin to finish the fly. Now, what's happened here? I don't know how well you see on the camera, but I've clogged up the eye with resin. I know I have. So what I'm going to do is grab a little bit of feather off my bench here, and I'm just going to feed it through and that gets rid of any excess resin that you may have on the fly. You don't want to leave it, because once if you cure it and your eye's full of gunk or resin, when you come to clear that, you might find that you knock off half your head cement or resin, should I say, and that ruins the fly a bit. But there we go. Now, once I click the button and finish the live stream, so to speak, what happens is the video takes a little while to render, and once it's rendered, other people can watch the video at their leisure, really, just like any of my other time videos. So what I'm going to do is, if you comment on the video once it's rendered and you're watching it, I've got 2 of these flies here, and I'll happily send them to whoever makes me laugh in the comments section, shall we say. I need a laugh after the week I've had, so screen. Right, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No, I don't think so, Chris. It's probably me buggering it up. That sounds about usual. Let's see. Yeah, I really do need to have a play about with this. It's input capture 2. Yeah, it is probably me, to be fair. Anyway, chaps, I'll not hold you up any longer. I'm sure you've all got lots to do on this Sunday afternoon. I know I certainly have, and it's been emotional. I'll tidy up again, and I'll probably have a go at this again sometime very soon. So in the what's the future? I've got a little video coming out tomorrow. And my last one for the summer will be on Thursday, which will be a little bit different. Some of you might like it, some of you might not be so keen. But I certainly had a lot of fun making the video. And then what I'm doing is for August, I'll continue doing the time videos and the short form content, but the long form fishing videos, that'll be me until September now. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll hopefully see you all in the next